Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at the Hayl gas fields, which comes from a front article. It's really just a sort of a, as you can see here, that it's moving this way, and there's the Hayl gas fields there. Presumably it means sort of capturing a lot. You can see all these little oil things, etc., etc. I'm not sure whether these are hills or not, so I've left them just as desert. So it says up here that the Syrian Arab Army, National Defence Forces, Leah Al-Quds, Hezbollah plus other all units progressed against the ISIS terrorists. The adjective. Did put evil? Did they be evil ISIS terrorists or the blood-sucking ISIS terrorists? Anyway, in part of Hama province, in the countryside of the ancient city of Palmyra, and I think what you'll find is that Palmyra is sort of south somewhere. Also, there's this other scenario in more or less both at the same time, because it's simple and it's convenient little maps. So I'm just going to play it because I like to watch the games being played. I'm not going to put a lot of thought into it, but I'm going to use my magical pen to obviously draw. See that there's a little bit of lag there. My computer's obviously an idiot because there's no server side to that, so many things open. So that's the front line, and this is the objective. But we're going to basically consider the whole front because the reference to that is really the oil field, so you can see what all these oil fields are. Now I could go back and maybe put the objective markers on them, but I'm not just yet. You can play it as you want. So essentially it really comes down to sort of which units to hit and with what. And now I don't want to spend too long thinking about that because I do just want to get into sort of play mode, so to speak. Well, what I sort of want to do is we've got some rockets in there. We've got quite a hefty defence, really. I'm going to create a front line there to protect my indirect fire. If he wants to come out of his defences to attack me, he can. Here I'm going to do the same thing, creating a line. So that sort of says, what do I want to do with this? 3 motorised companies and some mechanised infantry. The road is sort of knackered, so you can't speed along the road. Now, I'm going to do some open thinking here. Let me refresh the page. Okay, because what I've got is a lot of lag. Well, I've got this stack here. Now, obviously that's the objective, and I can take it straight through here and hit it after bombarding things. What's wrong with this? I don't understand this. Because I move these units here. It doesn't seem to remember that. I think I know what's happened. That's really unusual. What has happened is I refreshed it on the first turn and it's actually reloaded the game. So I'm probably playing on a completely different game. So I'm doing the same movements, and so obviously I've got this sort of front line here. Now I'm sort of thinking, well, I can move through these units and attack that, or these are a little weaker. I could actually spend my time with my indirect units here attacking that, and then use these units to come up and around here. Instead, because this armour would join them, and so would all these units, so we could sweep through all of this, because once we break through here there's little to sort of stop that sort of action. Now there's no real sort of rear and flank fronts in this sort of game, but you know, I sort of think, well, would that be being too clever? Sort of try that, because I'm like that. I try things that are so sort of stupidly clever when really I could just sort of go straight through that way. But the thing is, you can't really, with this sort of front line, you can't really attack me. You know, this is a defensive line. These are zones of control. I mean, that's all zones of control along there. Zones of control, you know, like that. And as a matter of, that's my principle, but I mean, what else would there be possibly doing? I don't want to spend too much time thinking, but you know, likewise, I won't get the tool out again, but I could come this way and up through here. But I think I want to do that because I'd like to sort of do things a little more strategically, and so now this is interesting. I'm trying to avoid these roads because they cause you to stop very quickly. No, I don't have enough movement to move any further. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do, just to set myself in gear. So what I'm doing here is what I always quite like to do is to do one thing at a time, and so I will get my little tool out just to sort of, I want to do I don't want to reload the game again. So what I was saying, I want to leave this static here as a static front all along here. You know, whereas I think the sort of the schoolboy player in me would just sort of, well, I might as well move forward here now, but I'm not. I'm just going to sit and wait. And that's one of the things that a lot of these other games, they don't give you that option, because they're not strategy games. You know, they sort of capture this objective by turn 4. Well, clearly the person that set it up has sort of tweaked it and looked at it, so you have to do certain things on certain turns, and if you don't get that first turn synchronized, you're not going to do it. And I played a few of these games and I sort of think, well, I'd like to sit here for the first 10 turns bombarding them with my artillery, because I think I've got more artillery, and that would make it really easy. But the thing is, you've got to do it within 5 turns. You think, well, that's stupid. Why would I do it in 5 turns? You know. And so when you're thinking about things like this, you sort of think, well, I'm not going to do that because I've got all the time in the world. I mean, it isn't the Eastern Front where you've got to sort of do it, you know, quickly anyway. So anyway, so what I'm doing, I'm saying I'm going to leave these as they are for that purpose. But I'm going to do this attack here. Now, hopefully, I mean, they're all sort of dug in, so they're going to be worth 6. And I'll be worth 3, 6, 1 to 1, 2 to 1, possibly about 3 to 1. I'll get an up on this and a 10% surround, so it could be about 3 to 1, but I don't think it's going to knock it up to 4 to 1. I think a 3 to 1, but let's see what my maths is like. 5 to 1, 20, 3, 6, because he only had 4 in defence. 1, 2, and he was doubled, not tripled. Okay. I love it when I don't really get it right. I mean, I beat them back, but they're irregulars, so they fell back, but they got 1 depression instead of 2, so they're getting depressions now. They're not invincible. I think that was a bit much before. So now I don't want to move him, although I've got no movement to move him. Do any of these units actually have any movement? He's got some movement. If I can move him into this, yep, I can do that. Let's see whether any of these other units have any movement. He's got some movement. Why have I not used him already? Yeah. No movement. No movement. Did I read that right? I look at things sometimes and pretend I've read and understood it, and I completely went over my head. So we've got that, which means that we can spend the next turn moving out of it if we need to. Now that's the first turn, and I sort of think, fantastic, because now, you can sit back and say, well, what is the strategic position now? And only a very little thing has happened, but a strategic directive has taken place that sort of changed the way things look. In particular, we've just won one battle where we've forced ISIS units back. Well, not only have we forced them back, we've forced them out of their defences. So now they're even more susceptible to what is quite a large body of troops. We've only got a minute left, so I'm not going to bother doing another turn. I really wish I could just sit there and just run through them, but the time goes so quickly. But yeah, so now we've got these 2 static lines here. 1, 2, which are sort of, facing off these units. These units could sort of maybe counterattack, and we're not going to get that far to sort of experiment, but it would be sort of suicidal because they lose their defensive positions. They're in a defensive posture, so the fact that they might be able to get some good odds against some of these units would give them quite a good attack, but then they lose it all. And then we've got this assault line as a sort of coming through this way. Anyway, 3 seconds left, so I hope you enjoyed that. I'll speak to you later. Okay, I decided to go for another 15 minutes. One of the big problems for me is I've got to wait quite a while whilst it uploads. The location matters at the moment has got very slow uploaded as well, so it's even worse. So I thought of that strategy. The only thing about that is I sort of, when you do these videos, I'm always a bit rushed, is that I've still got to actually fend. It's not just a case of doing that. I've also turned some applications off. You can see the lines are a lot. CPUs a bit easier. I've still got to sort of do that, which means actually diverting some of these units to actually maintain that line so that I can do that. So this turn is going to be more about that. But what I didn't do, which is what I'll do now, is I didn't do this section. So we've got some artillery here. Okay, well we've got some reasonable here. Okay, well this second one, these rockets are on 2.9, 0.95, 0.7. Now if they want to just sit there, which most of them will, they'll sort of recover, but the artillery pieces won't, and the artillery piece is what we're after. And the big difference to some extent between the Syrian Arab Army and ISIS is that they're all stacked up in one stack, and we're distributed. So they're going to have to decide what they're going to fire at, and they're probably going to try and fire at the artillery because it's sort of that way inclined, otherwise they're just going to keep getting hit by it. Or they can retreat, but it's not actually their turn yet. So we've completed all that stuff, so we'll move on to the next turn. And it's now the ISIS player turn. So I haven't really thought at all about that strategy. I don't want to spend too much time trying to do it, but there is the option for counter-attacking. For example, here they've only got 2 irregular companies. So here they could probably attack quite heavily against that unit, which wasn't something that I thought about. Here they can get a 1-to-1. Now they're worth 3, so they can get 5, 10, 15, 20. So that would be a 6-to-1. They can get good odds against that, but that takes them out of their entrenchments, and that's it. That's their attack. And then, depending on how that works, that will leave them sort of over here in some way. Now I think I might go for it because I think that sort of makes sense. I'll leave him there because that forces the Syrian Arab Army to actually divert resources this way. They will be having to contend with whatever damage happens to this, and it could get wiped out. I should have thought of that, as I don't really think too far ahead on these games when I'm recording them. But it's sort of like that's why you do and model these things. And so, well, got to be careful about these irregulars because they're quite powerful in that sort of situation. All I needed to do was stack one other thing on it to get over 5. I could have stacked that unit there and that would have been it. He couldn't have got to this one with the same sort of odds. Well, they probably could, but they wouldn't have the surround. And they could have just moved this armour on there or left him in there. Now down here, in theory, you could sort of get maybe the similar sort of thing. So let's just see. Let's play devil's advocate, so to speak. Well, that buggered that. Really not doing very well on that. Should have moved those people in there. Now these guys are going to move forward. I think one here, one here, one here, and sort of fan out like that. mechanized. I know why he won't move. The more astute of you will notice that he's actually flagged up under the Syrian army. So he's so he's out of it for this game. I'll have to go back and sort that out. Yeah, so that's that. That's why it won't move. It's a setup error. Okay. Now that was a disaster, but we should be able to get something here. I've got some movement left here, and possibly on these units, although no. But here we've got some, so I'll move him another one, another two. So go this way or this way. Doing things not the way I want to do them. Okay, well I can repair that. Well, this is the terrible counter-attack. This is why you've got to be careful when you're attacking. Just to make sure you don't do terrible things like this. 7-1 DE. However, so that was terrible for the Syrian army, but for ISIS, yeah, I mean they've achieved that, but at what cost? You know, now they're in this. This is sort of the thing about thinking ahead, and whilst I'm narrating a video and sort of doing it like this, I tend to be less able to think ahead like that and sort of anticipate what the position will be and how vulnerable they'll be. Yeah, okay, they've taken that one little motorised unit. Down here I messed up on the movement, but otherwise that would be another 7-1 against this motorised unit. So, you know, they're quite deadly. 5-1 DR. Now, that's good for them. They survived that, but that's given them 2 depressions. And again, left them in what sort of position? Now, it's not a bad position. But so they basically forced a battle. Now, what I'm going to do with these rockets is do some counter battery fire on this with no effect. Was that unlucky or 0.2? Oh well. But here we should again have that, although it's not going to be as good. 5-1 DE. So ISIS have really pummeled the Syrian Arab army in this instance. But what has it left them with? This is interesting, because now it's sort of, it doesn't look as clear cut. I thought it was just going to be a walkover, but they've got a sting. You've got to watch that. You know, leaving. They wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't left myself in stacks of less than 5. And that's the reason our regulars are like that, because they sort of pick off not so much smaller, weaker targets, but you know, they're not going to attack a battalion. That's the whole idea. I mean, they're not really going to attack a company either. But you know, the company's the smallest unit, and they get their bonuses against the company as a sort of respective sort of feature of you know how I see irregulars working. You know, with the ambushes and you know IEDs and you know all that sort of stuff. So that's what they've done. Now I've moved them there deliberately because they're in barbed wire, which will give them a defensive bonus. Obviously I can't move that. more movement left on here. I've got movement in these things, but I'm not sure I really want to. So we've got 3, so we get 6. We get a 2 to 1 against that. I'm going to leave them in reserve. He's all moved up. They've done their attack. So that's what you get when you go in with confidence without thinking things through. So disaster has struck. I mean, I don't want to sort of sit here and start counting all the units, and this is what you should do. I mean, this is when you play a game, you sort of look at it. You know, it's like I can't really do that. You know, so I sort of spend 15 minutes thinking about the move, let alone doing several moves in 15 minutes. So that was a blunder. So how can the Syrian Arab... Well, what they want to do is to really start eliminating these units, and it's difficult because a lot of them are irregulars. I think the thing to do, the thing to pick up on at this stage, is to carry out some assaults, but making sure that I'm not stacked up as I was. So reorganising appropriately. Oh, it just gets worse, doesn't it? Oh, you should be able to move there. Okay, so that gives me 7 there. He can't attack that. What have we got here? 5. Okay, and that's another stack. Okay, so that was a quick defensive posture, which, just using my quick map tool, gives us a nice clear line along there, which pretty much means they won't be able to do what they just did. Now, I should be able to attack this. Seven to 1 with a DR, pushing him back with the 1 depression. Should be able to get a similar sort of, well, 3 to 1, that's better than nothing. 3 to 1 and a DE. But he just retreated to there. And he didn't get a... Or did he? I think he retreated to there. God, how can time fly so quickly? Now here, we've got the same sort of problem. So I'm going to put him there, like that. That gives us some nice big stacks. Wow. Well, I think I might use my artillery here. I've got 14 seconds left. Nine seconds. Finish off with an assault. DR. Okay, that's it. I'll speak. Okay, I'm going to give it another go because I've got my gander up a bit. Can't believe I messed it up. I thought it was going to be so simple. Yeah, it's a challenge. Now, what I really want to do here is I want to take that unit out, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth 1. It looks like he's entrenched, which will put him up to 2, and he's in hills, which will double him to 4. So I'm only going to really be getting sort of 1 to 1s, 2 to 1s. Now, if I try to push these units up there, that might work, giving me, say, 3 or 4 to 1, but then that would leave a big hole here. Now, I think what I'm going to do is move them there, move these here, to sort of block that, because this barbed wire, which runs across there, will limit any movement that way. So he won't be able to sort of shoot sort of straight down here and start attacking this. And then basically leave what I've got here as a flat line. Now I'm not going to attack this unit here because that was a mistake, but I will maybe next turn. But I think that's quite a straight line. I don't think you can really attack because you know they're all stacked larger. Be interesting. So I think I'm going to try that. Okay, I'll do this. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I sort of want to at least... You're not going to hills. I know why. It's the ISIS turn. Okay, that means I should be able to move him. Yeah, okay. So, ISIS turn now. And losing those 2 units has totally sort of given me a blunt edge. I mean, it wasn't great before, but it's really super tight. Now, I think he's going to stay there. And I just don't think we can roll this flank up at all. Now, he should have 6 in defence, but he's depressed slightly. See what I can do with this rockets. So if I can get him to less than, if I can get him to less than 5. DE. That didn't work. I'll have to look at how that works. Five, 6, 7. Now I'm just sort of almost just giving up here and experimenting because I need to know whether or not they shouldn't get their 5 bonus. No, that's not right. 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, I think I've sorted this out. However, it means now that I'm really not going to sort of play it in its proper sense now because I want to test whether or not it's worked. It wasn't. I've got an additional loop that was supposed to be adding up the strength, and it wasn't actually. It was just looking at the last one, so it would always have been less than 5 unless the unit wasn't 5. Messily understand all that, but what I'm going to do to demonstrate that is I'll end 2 turns. So it's now ISIS turn. So this stack here should be worth more than 5. We'll surround it by 4 units as we had before and attack it. Now their total strength should be 4, not 20. Yes. That's because their defense was greater than 5. So that's the edge that they've got. To be quite honest, as it stands, I might knock that down to something like 4.5. Although it's just a very small difference, I think they've got... Well, no, actually, I think I'll leave it at that, because I think one of the things I was thinking was it was looking at sort of an integer value, say it had to be... We're talking about 5, but 5.3 would have counted and 5.8 would have counted. But I think actually if it has to be less than or equal to 5, so 5.1 would not count. So as long as we can get it over 5, we can stop those assaults going through. Can't believe that that error has been in there for so long. I've never noticed it before. So that said, you know, so I mean, what actually happened in that? I mean, they got an exchange, which was quite good, but you know, they didn't get that eliminated, and they did eliminate this unit down here, which was greater than 5. So you know, I have to throw the towel in on that. But it's a fairly scary picture, really, because ISIS have totally, you know, got the upper hand here, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to maintain that. Let's just go one turn ahead and just see what the odds are here. I feel like playing this again now. 2-to-1 exchange, so that's 2-to-1. That's not bad. You know, they can afford to do that. Once they've dislodged that unit, they'll be a lot weaker, and then they can start pushing that front around. I'm going to sort of upload this now, but I think I'm going to give it another go and try and play it properly.